Okay, then that's fine. I'll just close my eyes.
Well, you could look in this direction and not like straight to that.
Yeah, I will just, well, I also want to make eye
right.
contact sometimes with the camera, maybe. I don't know, that's
Yeah.
really difficult. Okay. So I could, I could start now, yes? No, it's fine. Just blind, no, it's fine. It's fine. No, it's okay. I chose this theater apparently. So, okay, thank you. Well, hello everyone. Thank you for coming to this adaptive wear seminar. We are now 5 weeks into the semester, so I understand it is kind of crunch time, so I appreciate you taking the time to come and attend this seminar. I am super passionate about accessibility and inclusivity in fashion, so I'm really honored to be able to share what I've researched with you all. And as students here at FIT, we are quite literally the future of fashion. And if we want to see any change in the industry, it really is up to us. So with that being said, this summer I launched WTF, which stands for We the Future of Fashion, which is a consulting firm, and I consult businesses and teach them how to be more inclusive in the fashion industry. I am also the programming chair of Delta Alpha Pi, which is an honor society here on campus at FIT. If you get, I think, a 3.0 is the qualifying GPA, and you are registered with Fitable, you are also eligible to be a part of this honor society. As the programming chair, I am hosting events to teach people about accessibility here on campus. So the first thing I do want to go over is that there is a real market here for adaptive wear. It is not just something to be done in order to be politically correct or inclusive just for the name of it. There is a real market, and people just don't know the numbers, and I think that is why it's often overlooked. In the world, there are 1 billion people who are disabled, and granted, disability is a huge umbrella term, and that doesn't necessarily mean that every single disability is relevant to clothing, but I just think that that number is important so people can get a good perspective as to how many of us are disabled out here. So the next thing is these people are customers. They are not, again, you are not doing charity work. It's a business and you can make money through doing this. Disabled American adults alone make almost $500 billion in disposable income, and that is a lot. It is a real market, again. So by Vogue Business, not by just thin air, they have projected that by 2026, the projected value of adaptive wear industry will be at $400 billion. So with all the research that I've done in adaptive wear, I've come to realize that a lot of adaptive wear fits into 3 main categories, and these accommodation types can be easily remembered with the acronym SAM. So sensory is what the S stands for, A is for access, M is for mobility. And I will be going over each of those with visual examples so that you can see them. So for sensory, this is for people, a lot of people who are neurodivergent experience this, especially people who have autism or ADHD. And this is what's available on market right now. I do not want you to feel limited by what you see on this, which is exactly what I'm trying to say. There's a lot of opportunity in these spaces. So as you can see, there are elements that can be seen in sensory-friendly clothing, and some of you may own this type of garment without even knowing. So wider necks is a part of it, softer fabrics, there's also different fits, looser fits or compression fit. There is no particular definition of what sensory friendly necessarily means because everyone's perception of their senses are different and they will need different accommodations. There are also tearaway labels. A good example of this in the industry right now is from Lululemon. Not that they are great in inclusivity, but what they do have is tearaway labels, and it is a great thing in my opinion. I do not like tags in my clothing, so these are beautiful. They rip cleanly, so there isn't necessarily residue as is what happens when you when you have to cut out labels. So access is another form of accommodations. And in access, there are a plethora of different things that may entail. You could be needing access to prostheses, braces, PEG tube, ostomy bags, heart monitor, the list goes on. This is I don't know if I just pressed next to play it, perhaps. Nope. This is a video, and that's not playing. I don't know how to do that. These are a pair of pants from Tommy Adaptive, which is Tommy Hilfiger's line. And oh, okay. I don't know how to play this. Maybe it's just not loading. Sorry. Are these all not going to load?
If it's
I'm
a
just
video,
going.
sometimes it has a hard time playing it.
Yeah. Well, here we go. This is the way I will go about showing them, I guess. So as you can see, the bottom opens up with magnetic buttons, and that allows for people who are wearing prostheses to access them and have easier access rather than a closed pant leg. The next one is mobility. So mobility is a really overarching category of inclusive fashion. And here we will see another example from Tommy Adaptive. And these are actually the zippers that we will be handing out today. They latch at the bottom from a magnet so that you only need one hand to zip them up once they are sewn in. This is also super beneficial even if you do not necessarily have any type of dexterity issues, but imagine when you are wearing winter coats and you are wearing winter gloves. It is very difficult to pinch that little zipper pull and pull it up, and for that reason it is also very useful. You just put your hands in your pockets, move them together, and they naturally click together, and all you have to do is pull it up. And you can also put in a larger zipper pull or a zipper pull ring to aid in that accessibility. So this is one of my favorite designs. It is Nike Go Fly Ease, and these shoes pop off just like this, and it is a very intuitive design. And I think that it's understated that inclusivity, especially in the sense of accessibility, is natural to us, and we actually have to think more creatively in implementing this. Okay, I'm going off script a little bit. Okay, so there's a huge thing that I like to I talk about a lot, and it is the curb cut effect. If you see the sidewalk on the corner, there is a cut, and that cut was implemented by ADA, and that is to be compliant and allow for wheelchair users to go on and off the sidewalk with ease. After they implemented that design, it became very clear that a lot of people actually benefit this. People who are using strollers, carts, anything with wheels also benefit from having this cut. So the concept of accessible design and designs specifically made for disabled people actually benefiting people who are not disabled, that concept is called the curb cut effect. This is a perfect example of the curb cut effect in fashion. So another visualization of mobility, accessibility in shoes is from Billy Shoes, which is this one right here. And with that, that concludes all of the examples that I have provided for you today. I do not want you to feel limited by any of the things that I showed you today. That is just a guideline of what is out there currently on the market. But again, we are creative students, and that should mean that we should use that creativity to also incorporate more people into our market. And without further ado, this is Sonia Yanes. She is a student here at FIT who graduated, and technically, and she designed adaptive wear for her thesis and had the first seated model down FIT's graduating runway. And she also established a relationship with a school that she did an internship at, and it is now in FIT's bank of internships. So I would like for her to go ahead and speak on her experience. Oh, I should give
Hello, do you hear me? Okay. Well, thank you, Michelle, for the introduction. So just like she mentioned, last year I got the pleasure to create 2 looks, and they were 2 adaptive looks. And today I'm here to kind of show you my journey in the hopes of demystifying the whole thing, and also encourage you to tap into it, because I feel like it's such a creative outlook, and I think that people hyper-focus on the functionality, but functionality does not mean that there's a lack of creativity. It just means that it's an add-on to creativity. So going for that, how do I do that? Oh, my bad. Oh. Sorry. Okay. Did it work? Okay. All right. So I'm going to start with why and how did I get into adaptive design. So for myself, I've kind of been around the world of disability, the community, ever since I was, a baby because I have a family member that is disabled and a parent that works in a school for kids with disability. So I've been around all those years, and I've also worked as a counselor in a camp for kids with disabilities. So I've had adjacent experience, but I've also had experience hands-on. I personally don't have any disabilities, but again, I've been around it all my life. And I've also been in meetings with PTs, OTs, speech therapists, paraprofessionals, so a lot of people that also are working and engaging in the disabled community. So that's mainly why I had the interest. And how I got the resources starting. Oh, there we go. So what I would like to start with is, who is the customer? When we start a collection in fashion design, whether it's for a project or in the real world, the first thing is always, who is your customer? So when we talk about adaptive design, this is going to be someone with disabilities. Now, that title, it can range from multiple things, right? And I think that for people that not necessarily, I don't want to say exposed, but don't necessarily have anybody in their close circle that have disabilities or know someone, when they hear that, the first image that's going to come is like those little emojis, those little logos that you'll see in like the trains and, parking space. We all know that one. So I want to shift the understanding of what someone with disability looks like, because for some it may look like one of those little logos, but what it really looks like is this. It's people that have an interest in fashion just like any able-bodied, that are able to also express their identity and creativity through fashion, that have an interest in fashion. It's not because you're disabled that you don't want to express yourself through clothes. One doesn't, take off the other. So I would really like to stress the fact that those are the people that we want to address. And those people are disabled. And that, when you develop a collection, this is what you should have in mind, not that. Because I feel like if you focus on that, then we only see functionality. Whereas here, sorry. We see self-expression and creativity and inclusion. So that is who our customer is. Now, for me, I did mention that I had the background and the information, but at the same time, again, I am not disabled, so I wanted to gain more information. And the way to do it, especially if you don't have any connections or any introduction, is definitely through research. Whether it's from books, whether it's from TED Talks, whether it's from videos, social page influencers. There's, people with disabilities are also influencers. So anything that you could grasp on, the more information, the better. And in that way, I feel like there's also a need to kind of get familiar with the community and not necessarily look at the science of it, but more at the people. Then, I don't see really. Then the second point would be get in touch with universal design and adaptive technologies in a sense that you understand more why it's done and all the possibilities that you can go through. And yeah, be curious is the main thing. There's so much to discover, there's so much information to gain, and so the worst thing is to assume. So the more curious you are, the better. Now, in terms of my process, so here's a little bit of the research that I did. So through my journey at FIT, I did do a collection for my thesis, but I also did a collection for my CFDA project, and that was mainly focused for women on the spectrum. And again, the main part, the starting point, was to watch videos about people in the spectrum talking about clothes and what the problems were, what they were looking for, to kind of get that insight. I also did a little collection for intimate wear. In one of the projects that I had in one of the class, I watched Love on the Spectrum, highly recommend, love the show. Just to get more in touch with the subject. I've watched many other documentaries, again, to get more information. And then from there, I just started to kind of like make graphics to kind of see where the problems were and how I could provide a solution, and see also in terms of, I have like a little graphic here for the hyposensitive, hypersensitive, to see what the points could be, kind of make everything, every little information that I had to put on a paper and then figure out from there. The third point is, after my research, I felt a need to make more observations, because as much research that I had, I really wanted to have like a hands-on experience. So that's when, I don't want to say I created the internship, but I brought the fashion internship at I Hope Academy to the career bank. So now if you're interested, you can go in there and you'll be able to do it. And so what I did in my internship is that I worked with an OT. So OT is an occupational therapist. I worked with Chow and Yuan, and she was an OT at the I Hope Academy, which is a school for kids with TBI, which is traumatic brain injuries. And so my job there was to help her kind of develop a fashion closet, but also make a lot of observation as to what the kids needed in terms of their clothing, what they had access to, what improvement could be done, and also understand how occupational therapy is very close to fashion and design in general, because the goal is to make the life of the person easier, and also to give them independence. And so through that, I've learned a lot about the technologies that they have. I've learned a lot about the problems that I didn't necessarily get through my research. So I definitely recommend. And I got it through YAI, which is an organization with Joseph Roth, and they also have like many other opportunities within fashion, but also art. So it's definitely someone to reach out if ever you have an interest. But yeah, the internship was essential in the development of my thesis because it helped me understand who I was dressing more. Then the fourth step was the exploration of deconstruction. And I say deconstruction because the way that I approached the subject was more to kind of redefine whatever I was making. To not go with, oh, I have a coat and I have to make it adaptive or I have to create access. It was just like, let's just tear the coat out and take the pieces and just like put them together to the body that is, let's say, in a seated position if I was dressing someone on a wheelchair. So it's coming from that theory where you kind of pick different elements and you put them together. And now what I'm showing here is that sometimes when we think, again, adaptive, we think accessibility, we think boring or, basics, which is fair, but I wanted to show that what is marketed as adaptive here with like the snaps and, the fact that you can take off the sleeves is also done in other stores, like, okay, in this instance, H&M, where you're going to find the same attribute, but it's not going to be marketed the same. All that to say that when we design for accessibility, it doesn't have to be medical, it doesn't have to be basics. If we go about more on the deconstruction aspect of it, it will allow you to be a little bit more creative because you're not restraining yourself to that idea of, oh, it has to be a basic that has access. And we can see it here too. Oh. So it's acting up. Oh, there we go. Okay, so another example, here we have denim pants fitted for someone that is seating. So the back is higher than the front, and there is no zipper. What I've attached to is different ways to put a zipper on the side or, ways to cut a pant. So it doesn't have to be, again, like on one side. It can be in all different direction. And we can see it here too. On one side we have a cape that is made for someone that is in a seated position. And again, the cape concept is being taken for other fashion brands, but not necessarily marketed as accessible. It can still be accessible, it's just not necessarily marketed that way. Now, in terms of fittings, so we know that in the process of making a garment, we do make those prototypes and then we have to fit them. So for me, fittings were a challenge because obviously the mannequins that we have at school are regular size 6 or 8. They're not seated, so I had to be very creative to figure out how to fit it. But I will say that one of the main components when it comes to fitting on a different body that we have in class or that we have access to is to go 3D. So there's a course, I believe, at FIT where you can learn through Chloe how to make clothes. And that's mainly what I used, and that helped me actually develop new types of patterns. So instead of going from your regular bodice, I would literally create different shapes and then tried to fit it on that seated body, and it would just, help me define the pattern and kind of take off a lot of the little mistakes that I could make. And also I had the opportunity to fit it on a seated model. So that's also a huge plus, to be able to actually see it through the correct and the accurate body. And then I wanted to talk about development of technologies. So again, there's a place for creativity, but there's also a lot of space for developing technologies. Through the many projects that I did, including my thesis, I've developed, a shape-shifting coat, which goes from very small to very large, to like pleats and holes. So that came about with the hyper and hypo silhouette, where it's very close and then it's very wide. I've also included, magnets, attachment, and I've also developed a tag system where you would just have a QR code for the tag, and since we all have kind of our mobile phones, once you would scan it, it would give you the information of the garment, so no more labels. And also through my research for people in the spectrum of autism, one of the things that I've learned is that sometimes they don't know necessarily how to wear according to the weather. And so with that QR code, I included information in terms of what this garment is appropriate for, or what color does it go well with, so additional information that you could have just by scanning it. So those little things are opportunities for, further technologies to be implemented in clothing as well. Now, I wanted to show you guys the coat that I made for my thesis. And so that coat is the hypo and hyper silhouette, in the sense that it has a lot of pleats, and in each of these pleats there's a buttonhole, and there's a string that goes through it, which allows it to compress and decompress, kind of like an accordion. So it's like mimicking that same concept. And through that coat, we can see also that the collar is detachable from the back. There's a button. And there's also a specific placement in the front that is inspired by the harness that kids at the school that I was interning at had, because when they are transported from the school to the bus, they have this harness on top of them to secure them so that they don't fall from the chair. And so I figured that, when you put that harness, you want a flat surface. You don't want any more fabric or anything that would actually cause friction. So that's why the placement is there. So to me, it looks also like an aesthetic choice, but it's actually coming from an idea where there was an issue and I provided a solution. And then the other aspect of it is that it's a dolman sleeve, and the sleeves have pleats. And that is coming from the way that in that internship, I would see the kids, when they have to have their coat on, the paraprofessional who help them would scrunch the arms to then be able to put it through their arms. And it's really hard when you have a coat that is really thick and you have to scrunch all of that. So I figured, well, if I put pleats in there and I have that concept of, being large and then being very, very small, it will ease the process and it won't make it difficult. And also, pleats look beautiful. So it worked out in that way. And then the last point is the open back. Because they're seated, again, there's friction because they have a back where they're, what do you call that? I don't know. You get what I mean. They're sitting And there's friction within the clothing and their chair. So to eliminate that, I opened the back, and it's also a wrap. So it can fully open, so you could literally just put it on just like that. You don't have to do this or this. You just have to open your arms and just put it kind of like a jacket. So again, that insight I got from the school by looking at how they would put their clothes on and what would make it easier. And again, having a wrap back is cool. It's an aesthetic touch. Like, I don't necessarily see it as something that is purely functional. And now if I go here, so these are the looks that I had for my thesis. One thing that I would like to point out is that the jacket and the pant are put on by two different people that are on two different chairs. And for both chairs, the jacket works. And it works because I've implemented different adjustments. So it can be either loose for, let's say, Damaris, and it got tighter for Alana because it would, go on the wheels. So there was a way to kind of like put it in. So again, like allowing the garment to be different and to kind of let the person that is wearing it adjust it to themselves is also a big goal in the whole process. That it's not necessarily, because sometimes it's hard to do it for one specific need when there's so many needs. But if you allow adjustment, then it allows the person to kind of cater the garment to her needs. Now the publication, so visibility is super important. So to me, when we design for accessibility, when we talk about adaptive design, we can't talk about it without the person that wears the clothes. And so it's really important to also bring those to the forefront. When I did my photo shoot, I worked with an agency called ZBD, and it's an amazing agency. It specializes in with people with disability. It only has that. And the models are amazing. I highly recommend, if you have any project, to get in touch with them. Again, they're like really great. And the models are professionals. They're models. It's not... we're not talking about, I don't want to say charity case, but we're talking about fashion. So we hire models, we have clothing, and they're there. And for me, it was really important to put that up front. So lastly, I kind of wanted to put an emphasis on creativity. And I say that because going through all my classes in fashion design, that's the main thing, right? We want to be creative. We want to share a story through design. We want to share aesthetic through design. And I think that when we think of adaptive design and when we think about accessibility, creativity is not necessarily linked. And I would like to break that. You can be creative and accessible. Those two can go together, and I think that if we take that more as an inspiration, in a sense that there's room for a lot of new ideas, then I feel like you will be able to fully incorporate adaptive design within fashion, and it will look just like everything else. So I hope that I gave you enough information to shift that idea.
Well, Well, thank you, Sonia. Without further ado, oh, I do want to say that there was another speaker. Her name is Haley Schwartz. She was not able to make it today, but she was the P Prize winner for her adaptive wear brand Vertige Adaptive, and she would have loved to be here, but she could not have. And so these are just QR codes for our LinkedIns in case you want to connect with either of us, and we will get started on the raffle.